Guys, today there is something seriously wrong going on when it comes to sports. The integrity is more questionable now than it has ever been before. Late last month, as we all know, Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, Damon Jones, all arrested for illegal gambling. In Damon Jones' case, in Chauncey Billups' case, in Terry Rozier's case, we're talking about fixing game.
Okay, so he just said game fixing is happening at 3 separate schools. And here's what's wild. This isn't some isolated incident anymore. We're talking about a full-blown crisis spreading through college basketball like wildfire. And what you're about to see, it gets way darker than anyone's reporting. Because while everyone's focused on these 6 players getting banned, nobody's asking the question that should terrify every sports fan watching this: how many others haven't been caught yet? The schemes these guys were running, they're so blatant, so obvious, that you have to wonder, are these just the dumbest criminals? Or is there a whole underground operation of smarter ones still cashing in? Let me break down exactly what's happening here, because by the end of this video, you're going to look at every close game completely differently.
New stars, the NBA has an issue on their hand. You had the Michael Porter Jr., the Jonte Porter case. You had the Michael Beasley case that's still up in the air. Most recently, Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones. Basketball is in a place. Is something going to come down the pike when it comes to the WNBA? When it comes to WNBA leadership? WNBA officials, perhaps? WNBA players, perhaps? Going 2 for 15 on a random Wednesday night.
Did you catch what he said about the WNBA? That's the part everyone's glossing over, but it's massive. He's basically saying there's a whole league where nobody's even watching for this stuff. Think about that for a second. If players know investigators aren't paying attention to women's basketball, what's stopping them from running the exact same schemes? You've got players going 4 for 15 on random Wednesday nights, and everyone just shrugs it off as a bad game. But after what we're about to uncover, you'll never look at an off night the same way again. And here's where it gets insane. The biggest name caught in all of this is BJ Freeman from Arizona State. This wasn't some bench warmer trying to make quick cash. This was the team's second leading scorer, averaging almost 14 points per game. A legit player with a future, throwing it all away. But listen to exactly what he was doing.
He will never play college basketball again, nor will the former players at Mississippi Valley State and New Orleans. Said Quavius Hunter, Daquavian Short, Jamon Vincent, Donovan Sanders, and Alvin Stredrick. Freeman's case was first reported by CBS Sports in September. The NCAA uncovered his infractions while looking into a different case tied to former Fresno State basketball player Mikal Robinson. Records on Robinson's phone indicated that on 4 separate occasions between November and December 2024, Freeman knowingly provided information to Robinson, who was betting on Freeman through daily fantasy sports accounts. According to the Committee on the Infractions Report, Freeman also knowingly provided information on at least 2 occasions to his then-girlfriend, who was also betting.
So Freeman's feeding information to his girlfriend and some dude named Mikal Robinson, telling them exactly what to bet on. He's saying, bet the over on my points, bet the over on my 3-pointers. And then he's actively trying to hit those numbers in games. But here's what makes this absolutely wild. When investigators interviewed him, he lied about everything. Denied sharing information, denied having a DraftKings account, even though it was literally under his name and email, the account he'd been depositing money into while playing at his previous school. You're watching someone destroy their entire future in real time. And for what? We're not talking millions here. We're talking about a college kid trying to make a few $1,000, maybe less. And the craziest part, Freeman got kicked off Arizona State in February. But according to sources, it wasn't even because of the gambling. He committed to transfer to UCF in the spring, probably thinking he'd gotten away with it. Then boom, permanent ban. No more college basketball ever. His career over before it really started. But Freeman's scheme, that's child's play compared to what was happening at University of New Orleans. Check out how blatant this gets.
Per the NCAA's finding, a student athlete reported overhearing Quavius Hunter and Daquavian Short and Jamon Vincent discussing a third party placing a bet for them on their December 28, 2024 game. The same student athlete reported that during a timeout near the end of the game, Short instructed him not to score any more points. Hey, play some bets. Don't score any more points so my bets can hit. Don't score any more points so the people who I told to bet on this can hit. The 3 players were suspended at the end of January last season and never played again.
Hold up. Did you hear that? During a timeout near the end of a live game, one player tells his teammate, "Don't score any more points so my bets can hit." Let that sink in for a second. You've got players literally coordinating game fixing during timeouts, right there on the bench, in front of coaches and cameras. The audacity is insane, but what's even crazier is another student athlete reported overhearing 3 players, Quavius Hunter, DeQuovian Short, and Jamon Vincent, discussing a third party placing bets for them before their December 28th game. These guys weren't even trying to hide it. They're having full conversations about throwing games where teammates can hear them. And get this, text messages recovered from Vincent's phone showed him literally texting people with instructions to bet on this game, because we plan to throw it. Like, who texts that? Who leaves that kind of evidence just sitting on their phone? But here's what nobody's talking about. These weren't random games. The investigation found they attempted to manipulate game outcomes 7 different times. 7 games where fans showed up, paid for tickets, bet on their team to win, and the players had already decided the outcome before tip-off.
Participated in FaceTime calls on the same day with a known bettor who told them to lay it down for the next game. This is as blatant as you can get when it comes to fixing games, rigging outcomes, jonesing the system, if you will. At MVSU, Mississippi Valley State, the NCAA claims it found more of the same, albeit in another scheme that was unconnected to the activity at University of New Orleans. The NCAA's probe began with the team's 79-67 loss at Alabama A&M on January 6th, but as the investigation continued in 2025, they uncovered game fixing dating back to the week of Christmas last season.
So now we've got text messages showing Short and Hunter discussing receiving $5,000, $5,000 to throw a game, and they're on FaceTime calls with a known bettor who's telling them to lay it down for the next game. This is organized crime happening in college basketball. We're not talking about kids making dumb mistakes. We're talking about systematic game fixing with outside bettors coordinating everything. But wait, there's a third school involved, and this is where the timeline gets really disturbing. Mississippi Valley State had their own completely separate scheme running, and what investigators uncovered there shows just how deep this rabbit hole goes. The NCAA's investigation started with one game, a loss to Alabama A&M on January, but as they dug deeper, they found game fixing dating all the way back to Christmas week. And the way it went down, it's straight out of a crime movie.
December 21st, 2024 game, he overheard Donovan Sanders on the phone with an unknown third party talking about throwing the game, the NCAA states. Sanders asked the student athlete to participate in the call because a third party had told Sanders the individual intended to bet on the game and wanted to know that another of Sanders' teammates would participate in the scheme. The student athlete denied altering his performance or receiving money from Sanders or any other individuals. Sanders texted the same student athlete after the game and told him to delete their messages. The NCAA.
Okay, so picture this. Before their December 21st game, one student athlete overhears Donovan Sanders on the phone with someone talking about throwing the game. Sanders then asks this teammate to get on the call because the bettor wants confirmation that another player will participate in the scheme. Think about the psychology here for a second. Sanders is trying to recruit his own teammate into game fixing, right before they're about to play. And when this student athlete refuses and doesn't participate, Sanders texts him after the game and tells him to delete all their messages. That's consciousness of guilt right there. Sanders knew exactly what he was doing and knew he needed to cover his tracks. But he wasn't smart enough to realize investigators can recover deleted texts. And here's what makes this whole thing even more disturbing. Sanders and another player named Alvin Strendrick were presented with money to ensure Mississippi Valley State lost their January 6th game against Alabama A&M. These guys were literally being paid to lose games for their own team. Now you might be thinking, okay, this is terrible, but at least the NCAA is cracking down on it, right? Well, hold up. Because the hypocrisy of how the NCAA is handling this is about to make your head spin.
A little funny is that the NCAA, the hypocrites that they are, as of November 1st, they now allow these athletes to bet on pro sports. So let's just get this habit going, shall we? The hypocrisy is all across the board, from the people that report on this, the ESPN, they have their ESPN bet. the podcast. They have like their by FanDuel, by DraftKings, so on and so forth. Now you have the NCAA punishing players for betting on games, fixing games. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But on the other hand, you're now allowing these guys to bet on pro sports, getting them in the habit, getting them in the mode of betting on this crap before they weren't allowed to.
Did you catch that contradiction? The NCAA is permanently banning these players for betting on games and fixing outcomes, which they absolutely should. But as of November 1st, the NCAA now allows college athletes to bet on professional sports. Let me say that again. The same organization that just destroyed 6 players' careers for gambling is now encouraging athletes to gamble, just on different games. They're literally teaching these kids the habit of betting, while telling them just don't bet on your own sport. That's like telling an alcoholic you can drink, just not on Tuesdays. It's insane. You're normalizing gambling behavior, getting these kids comfortable with betting apps, teaching them how odds work, how to place bets, and then acting shocked when some of them cross the line into betting on their own game. And here's where the hypocrisy gets even deeper. ESPN reports on these gambling scandals, with their ESPN Bet logo plastered everywhere. Podcasts are sponsored by DraftKings and FanDuel. The entire sports media ecosystem is built on gambling revenue now, but they want to act morally superior when players do exactly what they've been encouraged to do. The system is designed to push athletes toward gambling, then punish them when they take it too far. It's predatory, and nobody wants to admit it because there's too much money involved. But let's zoom out for a second, because what's happening in college basketball is just the tip of the iceberg. Remember what he mentioned at the beginning about the NBA and MLB?
As we all know, Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, Damon Jones, all arrested for illegal gambling. In Damon Jones' case, in Chauncey Billups' case, in Terry Rozier's case, we're talking about fixing games. We're talking about rigging prop bets for benefits of others, illegal behavior. In MLB, in Major League Baseball, we have Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz getting indicted on charges of rigging pitches, throwing balls purposely, taking heat off pitches to hit certain prop bets. And over the weekend...
So we've got Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, and Damon Jones all arrested for illegal gambling. And in Billups and Rozier's cases, we're talking about fixing games, rigging prop bets to benefit others. These are NBA players, guys making millions of dollars, and they're still caught up in gambling schemes. Then you've got MLB with Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz getting indicted for rigging pitches, purposely throwing balls, taking heat off pitches to hit certain prop bets. Professional athletes at the highest level, compromising the integrity of their sport for gambling money. And here's what should terrify every sports fan. These are just the ones who got caught. These are the players who were sloppy enough, blatant enough, or unlucky enough to get investigated. How many others are out there running smarter schemes? How many players have figured out how to manipulate games without leaving text message evidence or bragging to teammates? The Michael Porter Jr. case, the Jonte Porter situation that blew up. These keep happening, and each time the league acts surprised. But prop betting has created a system where players can directly profit from underperforming. You can bet on yourself to score under a certain number of points, then just have an off night. Who's gonna know the difference?
You're watching this stuff unfold, and you have to ask yourself, this guy shoots 85% from the free throw line. Why is he shooting so bad today? This guy finishes around the rim at a 60% clip. Why can't he hit a layup today? And then when you double that onto the women's basketball side, you just told me that this player was one of the best in the league. Oh, why does she look incapable of making layups? Why does she look incapable of dribbling the ball? This player never fouls out of game. Why is she fouling out today? There's no difference in the defense she's playing today than she usually plays.
And there it is, the question every fan needs to be asking. When you see a player who shoots 85% from the free throw line suddenly going 3 for 10, what's really happening? When a guy who finishes 60% of his shots around the rim can't hit a layup to save his life, is it just a bad game, or is something else going on? This is the insidious part of gambling corruption. It plants seeds of doubt in every unusual performance. That player who fouled out in the first half when they never foul, maybe they had money on foul props. That star who took way more three-pointers than usual, maybe someone told them to chase the over on their three-point attempts. And when you extend this to women's basketball, where betting scrutiny is way lower and investigation resources are minimal, the potential for corruption multiplies. The WNBA doesn't have the same spotlight. doesn't have the same investigative infrastructure. If you're a player looking to run a scheme, that's exactly where you'd do it. You've got players going 4 for 15 on random Wednesday nights, and everyone just accepts it as she's in a slump or tough defensive matchup. But after everything we've uncovered, you have to wonder, how many of those performances are legitimate? And how many are calculated? The uncomfortable truth is we might never know. Because for every player dumb enough to text, "Let's throw this game," there's probably another player smart enough to just play badly. No texts, no calls, no evidence. Just an inexplicable off night that hits someone's prop bet perfectly.
Not involved in or aware of the unconnected schemes. Quote, while the cases at each school are not directly related, the violations for each case involved betting-related game manipulation and/or student athletes provided information to known bettors, according to the NCAA's release. Additionally, all 3 cases involved lack of cooperation by student athletes who knowingly provided false or misleading information to investigators. As a result of the sports betting violations, the student athletes all violated ethical conduct rules, triggering permanent
So here's what the NCAA determined. None of the schools are being punished because coaches and most players weren't involved or aware of these schemes. The cases at each school weren't directly related. These were 3 separate operations running simultaneously at different programs. But think about what that really means. You've got game fixing happening at Arizona State, University of New Orleans, and Mississippi Valley State, all at the same time, all completely independent of each other. This isn't some organized crime ring coordinating between schools. This is multiple groups of players all figuring out the same scheme on their own. That's actually more disturbing than if it were one big conspiracy, because it means the opportunity is so obvious, so accessible, that players at different schools are all arriving at the same criminal behavior independently. And all 3 cases involved players who knowingly provided false or misleading information to investigators. They lied, they covered up, they deleted evidence. These weren't mistakes or misunderstandings, these were calculated criminal enterprises, with attempted cover-ups. The NCAA's response: permanent ineligibility for all 6 players. Their college careers are over, and any dreams of professional basketball are basically dead, because no team wants to touch players banned for game fixing. But here's the question nobody's asking: is permanent ineligibility enough? These players didn't just violate NCAA rules, they committed fraud. They took money to deceive fans, bettors, and their own teammates. Where are the criminal charges? Where's the FBI investigation into organized sports corruption?
Second infractions announcement tied to college basketball in the past 2 months. The second infraction tied to college basketball in the last 2 months. For its part, the NCAA and its president Charlie Baker have lobbied to eliminate player prop bets on gambling apps and at casinos. Prop bets can lead to illegal activity, like the cases depicted above, and can trigger frequent online harassment from gamblers toward college athletes. Now, what makes this all a little funny is that the NCAA, the hypocrites that they are, as of November 1st, they now allow these athletes to bet on pro sports. So let's just get this habit going, shall we?
This is the second infractions announcement tied to college basketball in just the last 2 months. 2 months. We're averaging 1 major gambling scandal per month now. And those are just the ones getting caught and publicly announced. The NCAA and their president Charlie Baker have been lobbying to eliminate player prop bets on gambling apps and at casinos. And honestly, they're right about this one. Prop bets create direct incentives for players to manipulate their own performance. When you can bet on yourself to score under 10 points, then just play badly and cash in, the temptation is too strong for some players to resist. But here's the problem. The gambling industry makes insane money on prop bets. Those are the bets that casual fans love. They're easy to understand, they make watching games more exciting, and they keep people engaged. Sportsbooks aren't giving those up without a massive fight. So you've got the NCAA trying to protect the integrity of their sport, while gambling companies are lobbying to keep the exact bets that enable corruption. And guess who has more money and political influence? It's not the NCAA. Meanwhile, prop bets also trigger frequent online harassment from gamblers toward college athletes. You've got kids getting death threats on social media because they didn't hit the over on some random bettor's parlay. That's the world we've created, where college athletes are being harassed by adults who lost money betting on teenagers playing a game. The whole system is broken, and everyone with the power to fix it is making too much money to care.
According to the Committee on the Infractions report, Freeman also knowingly provided information on at least 2 occasions to his then-girlfriend, who was also betting on Freeman. When interviewed by enforcement staff, Freeman knowingly provided false or misleading information when he denied sharing information with Robinson and his then girlfriend. He also denied having a daily fantasy sports account, which was under his name and email address, into which he had made deposits while competing at a previous school. Freeman attempted to hit the overs on his point totals, turnovers, assists, and three-pointers made, per the NCAA's finding. He was kicked off the team last February, though a source told CBS the reason for removing him from ASU's program was not tied to his game.
So Freeman attempted to hit the overs on his point totals, turnovers, assists, and three-pointers made. He was actively trying to manipulate multiple statistical categories in the same games, and according to the NCAA's findings, he was doing this on at least 4 separate occasions between November and December. But here's the part that should make Arizona State fans furious. Freeman was kicked off the team in February, but a source told CBS Sports the reason for his removal wasn't tied to his gambling actions. The school apparently didn't know about the gambling at that point. They kicked him off for something else entirely. Then Freeman announces his commitment to transfer to UCF in the spring. He's probably thinking he dodged a bullet, that whatever got him kicked off ASU was behind him, and he's